There's a silent financial mistake that doesn't show up on spreadsheets, doesn't depend on how much you earn, and isn't linked to a lack of effort. Yet, it keeps millions of people working harder, feeling exhausted, and with the feeling that they're never getting anywhere. This mistake isn't due to a lack of income, laziness, or shortcuts or ready-made formulas. It lies in how financial decisions are organized, or rather, in the absence of strategic organization over time. Before we continue, it's important to make it clear. This content is educational and does not represent a promise of financial gain. The goal here is not to offer quick fixes, but to provoke a deeper change in how you think about money and make financial decisions on a daily basis. Because thinking about money isn't just about adding up numbers or cutting expenses. Thinking strategically means understanding how small choices, when repeated, shape big results in the medium and long term. Most people deal with money reactively. They earn, spend, pay bills, and repeat the cycle month after month. When there's money left over, they decide what to do with it. When there's a shortage, they try to compensate with extra effort, occasional cuts, or improvised solutions. This model works for survival, but rarely for growth. It keeps the person busy, but not necessarily for progress. Strategic thinking begins when you stop looking only at the current month and start seeing money as a system. A system with income, expenses, commitments, recurring decisions, and future consequences. It doesn't matter if income is high or low. Without a strategy, any amount of money is wasted. With a strategy, even limited resources can be organized more efficiently. A key shift in mindset is understanding that money responds not only to effort, but also to direction. Two people can work the same number of hours, have similar incomes, and still achieve completely different results over the years. The difference is rarely in the amount of work, but in how decisions are organized and repeated. Strategic thinking involves anticipation. It's the ability to ask yourself, if I continue making this decision in the same way for 5 or 10 years, where will that lead me? Few people do this exercise consciously. Most decide based on immediate comfort, the pressure of the moment, or comparison with others. Comparison, in fact, is one of the biggest enemies of financial strategy. When you make decisions based on what others appear to have, you outsource your logic. Strategy requires its own criteria. It demands clarity about real priorities, not external expectations. Another central point of strategic thinking is the difference between cost and value. Many people only analyze the price of things, without considering the impact that decision will have on the budget over time. An expense should not be evaluated solely by the amount paid today, but by the space it occupies within your monthly and annual financial system. When you start to see money as a system, you realize that small, recurring decisions have a much greater impact than large, occasional decisions. A seemingly small, but fixed expense can be more detrimental than a large, planned purchase. Strategy is about knowing where to focus your attention. Thinking strategically also means accepting that not every financial decision brings immediate satisfaction. Some choices only make sense in the medium and long term. This requires emotional maturity. Many people know what they should do, but they don't do it because the benefit isn't immediate. Strategy is precisely the ability to give up the present to build something more solid later. Another common mistake is confusing movement with progress. Working more, earning a little more, and spending proportionally more is not financial progress. Progress happens when your decisions increase your margin of choice in the future. When you gain more control over your time, less constant pressure, and more predictability. Strategic thinking about money also involves creating margins. Financial margin is a safety net. It's when you're not living on the edge. Without a margin, any unforeseen event becomes a crisis. With a margin, problems become adjustments. Creating a margin depends not only on high income, but on consistent decisions. A healthy financial strategy recognizes limits. It's not about doing everything at once. It's about choosing priorities, trying to invest, save, consume better, and maintain the same level of emotional comfort can lead to frustration. Strategy is about understanding that, at each stage of life, something needs more focus. Thinking strategically also involves separating desire from planning. Wanting to improve financially is common. Planning is rare. Planning doesn't need to be complex, but it needs to be realistic. Strategy isn't idealism. It's dealing with reality as it is. Thinking strategically about money is the first step to getting out of autopilot. It's about ceasing to react to numbers and starting to make decisions with intention, awareness, and direction. Thinking strategically about money starts to gain traction when you observe patterns, not isolated episodes. Most financial problems don't stem from a single serious mistake, but from the continuous repetition of small, poorly evaluated decisions. Strategy is about seeing the big picture, not just the event. One of the most common patterns is the habit of compromising future income to alleviate immediate discomfort. Installment plans, poorly planned loans, and decisions made under pressure create a feeling of relief in the present, but limit choices in the following months. Financial strategy always considers the long-term impact of these decisions. Working harder may be necessary at certain times, but effort without structure rarely generates stability. When income increases without organization, spending patterns tend to follow suit. Thinking strategically means ensuring that organization and income evolve together, preventing increased earnings from simply exacerbating existing problems. Another essential aspect of strategic thinking is recognizing the invisible cost of financial mismanagement. It's not just about the money that goes out, but the mental energy that is lost. Constant debt, delays, and uncertainty occupy psychological space, reduce clarity, and hinder rational decisions. Strategy seeks to reduce this noise. People who think strategically value simplicity. Overly complex financial structures increase the chance of error and decrease control. Strategy is not about over-sophistication, but about making the system understandable and easy to follow. Creating a margin is one of the pillars of financial strategy. Margin is the space between what comes in and what goes out. Without a margin, any unforeseen event becomes a crisis. With a margin, the unexpected transforms into an adjustment. Strategy protects this margin with discipline and awareness. Another common mistake is believing that every opportunity needs to be seized. Not every seemingly advantageous decision contributes to the bigger plan. Thinking strategically means knowing how to say no to what is good in order to protect what is best. It's also common to confuse standard of living with quality of life. Spending more doesn't mean living better. The strategy is to align spending with what truly generates value and well-being, not with external expectations or social pressures. Constant comparison weakens strategic logic. Each person lives a different financial reality with their own priorities and limitations. Strategy requires focusing on one's own path and goals, not on the apparent progress of others. Thinking strategically also involves periodically reviewing decisions. What made sense at one time may not make sense at another. Strategy is not rigidity, it's flexibility with direction. Another key point is understanding that money responds to behavior. Sustainable changes happen when habits change. Tools help, but without behavioral adjustment, the results won't last. Strategy addresses the root cause, not just the symptom. Many people try to solve financial problems with only one-off solutions, without reviewing the decision-making model that created the problem. Strategy requires looking at the system as a whole and adjusting the pattern. Thinking strategically also means reducing financial leaks. Forgotten subscriptions, recurring fees, and small accumulated waste silently erode resources. Strategy eliminates what doesn't add real value. Financial clarity reduces anxiety. When you know exactly where you are and where you're going, decisions become less burdensome. Strategy generates predictability and peace of mind. It's important to emphasize that strategy is not synonymous with extreme rigidity. Strategy is coherence. Flexibility with awareness is different from lack of control. Thinking strategically about money involves understanding cycles. There are phases of restraint, phases of growth, and phases of protection. Recognizing the correct cycle prevents hasty decisions. Another important point is to separate identity from income. Your personal worth is not defined by how much you earn. A healthy financial strategy begins when this separation is clear. Working more, consuming more, and taking on more debt does not represent progress. Strategy directs effort toward building stability, not just movement. When money is organized, work ceases to be merely a response to emergencies and begins to serve a larger plan. Thinking strategically about money requires understanding the role of time realistically. Time is a silent multiplier. Small decisions, when repeated over years, generate much greater impacts than one-off, extreme choices. Strategy is about respecting this accumulated effect, both to avoid damage and to build stability. Many people underestimate the power of recurring decisions because their effects are not immediate. Financial strategy requires cognitive patience, the ability to continue making the right choices even when the results are not yet visible. This is one of the biggest differences between those who build security and those who live in cycles of instability. Another essential point is understanding that financial discipline is not punishment. Discipline is temporary organization to expand future freedom. Strategic people don't see limits as losses, but as protection. They know that saying no now preserves greater options later. Thinking strategically also involves learning to simplify. Overly complex financial systems increase the chance of error and decrease control. Strategy seeks clarity. Fewer unnecessary accounts, fewer repeated decisions, and more predictability. A common mistake is trying to fix everything at once. Strategy works through priorities. At times, the focus is on stabilization. At other times, on reducing risks. At other times, on growth. Trying to do everything simultaneously leads to frustration and abandonment of the process. Strategy is a logical sequence. It's also important to understand that financial stability doesn't mean the absence of problems, but the ability to absorb them without collapsing. Unexpected events are part of life. Strategy doesn't eliminate the unexpected, but it drastically reduces the emotional and financial impact when it happens. Thinking strategically about money requires separating emotion from decision-making. Emotions don't need to be eliminated, but they shouldn't dictate financial choices. Strategy creates structures that reduce impulsivity and increase awareness. Another key point is recognizing personal patterns. Some people spend more when they are tired, others when they are anxious or bored. Identifying these triggers allows you to create protective mechanisms. Strategy is self-knowledge applied to money. It's crucial to understand that money doesn't resolve internal conflicts, but amplifies them. Earning more without emotional and financial organization usually intensifies existing problems. Strategy begins before the income increase, not after. Thinking strategically also means abandoning the search for magic solutions. There is no perfect investment, foolproof formula, or risk-free decision. Strategy is consistency applied to simple, best practices, repeated over time. Another important aspect is understanding opportunity cost. Every financial choice eliminates other possibilities. Strategy is about making conscious decisions about these trade-offs, without excessive guilt, but with responsibility. Over time, strategic decisions create predictability. Predictability reduces anxiety, improves planning, and increases the quality of choices. When money becomes predictable, it ceases to dominate thought. Thinking strategically about money also means accepting that financial progress is silent. It doesn't show up in external comparisons or generate immediate validation, but it builds inner peace of mind, a safety margin, and real choices. Another essential point is to create pauses between decision and action. The more immediate the financial decision, the greater the chance of emotional error. Strategy creates conscious distance before spending, investing, or making commitments. Over time, intelligent repetition trumps intensity. It's not about doing something extraordinary once, but about doing the basics correctly for many years. Strategy values consistency. Thinking strategically also involves learning from mistakes without becoming paralyzed. Making mistakes is part of the process. The problem isn't making mistakes, it's repeating them without adjusting. Strategy transforms mistakes into learning experiences, not excuses. Another important aspect is understanding that money doesn't buy time, but bad financial decisions do steal time. Poorly planned debt and lack of organization consume mental energy. Strategy restores focus and clarity. With strategic maturity, money ceases to be a constant source of anxiety and becomes a controllable variable. Not perfect, but understandable and manageable. Thinking strategically about money means building a more mature relationship with consumption, work, and expectations. It's understanding that financial freedom isn't the absence of obligations, but the presence of choices. Over time, strategic decisions generate a cumulative effect. Less stress, more margin, more predictability, and more options. This effect is not immediate, but it is solid. And when this pattern solidifies, money stops dictating the rules of your life. It begins to obey a clear logic, aligned with your goals, limits, and values. Thinking strategically about money doesn't require prior wealth. It requires awareness. Awareness of choices, consequences, and direction. Ultimately, financial strategy is about making responsible decisions today so you can live more peacefully tomorrow. It's not about accumulating wealth for the sake of accumulating, but about building a less reactive and more intentional life. And when money starts serving your strategy and not the other way around, it finally fulfills its true purpose, to be a tool, not a problem. Thinking strategically about money also involves understanding that financial organization is not a one-time event, but an ongoing habit. Many people organize their finances once, face a crisis, make emergency adjustments, and then abandon the process. Strategy is continuity. It's about reviewing, adjusting, and maintaining awareness over time. Another important point is understanding that financial clarity reduces internal and external conflicts. Money problems often affect relationships, career decisions, and even emotional health. When money is disorganized, it invades areas of life that shouldn't be dominated by constant worry. Strategy creates boundaries and restores balance. Thinking strategically also means recognizing that financial decisions shape routines. Excessive spending forces longer working hours. Lack of savings increases anxiety. Poorly planned debt reduces freedom. Financial strategy is, ultimately, a way to protect one's own time and energy. Many people believe that financial freedom means not having to worry about money. In practice, financial freedom is having enough control so that money doesn't dictate every choice. This strategy doesn't eliminate responsibilities, but it reduces the feeling of being trapped. Another common mistake is believing that financial strategy is only for those who already earn well. In reality, thinking strategically is even more important when resources are limited. The smaller the margin, the greater the need for clarity. Strategy begins with awareness, not with the amount of money. Thinking strategically about money also involves accepting that not all discomfort needs to be eliminated immediately. Some discomforts are signs of necessary adjustment. Strategy is knowing how to differentiate unnecessary suffering from temporary effort with purpose. Another fundamental aspect is understanding that financial stability doesn't happen by chance. It's built through repeated decisions, often invisible to outside observers. Strategy values what is sustainable, not what is impressive. It's also important to understand that money doesn't need to be a constant source of guilt. Guilt paralyzes. Strategy works with responsibility, not punishment. The focus is not on past mistakes, but on present decisions. Thinking strategically means moving away from the logic of improvisation. Occasional improvisation is inevitable, but constantly improvising leads to emotional exhaustion and insecurity. Strategy creates enough predictability so that improvisation becomes the exception, not the rule. Another essential point is understanding that financial decisions reflect real priorities. What you finance, maintain, or repeat reveals more about your values than words. Strategy is about aligning decisions with what truly matters, not with external expectations. Over time, those who think strategically come to see money as a tool for protection, not just consumption. Protection against unforeseen events, against hasty decisions, and against unnecessary pressure. Thinking strategically about money also involves accepting that healthy financial growth is gradual. Rapid growth without structure often leads to subsequent instability. Strategy respects a pace that can be sustained. Another important aspect is recognizing that financial organization improves the quality of professional decisions. Those who live under financial pressure tend to accept any condition out of immediate necessity. Strategy expands the power of choice. Over time, strategic decisions build something that cannot be directly bought: peace of mind. Peace of mind is not the absence of challenges, but the presence of control. Thinking strategically means understanding that money doesn't define who you are, but it profoundly influences how you live. Strategy is about using that influence consciously, not automatically. When money is aligned with a clear strategy, it ceases to be a recurring problem and becomes a manageable resource. This doesn't mean perfection, but enough predictability to live with less stress. Ultimately, thinking strategically about money means acknowledging that every decision, no matter how small it may seem, contributes to shaping the future. There are no neutral decisions. There are only conscious decisions and automatic decisions. And when conscience guides money, the future ceases to be just a distant concern and becomes a possible, adjustable, and increasingly solid project. This content is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for individualized financial or professional advice.